the past 33 years, this is where I've run. Thanks largely to a passion passed on by my mom that started on this very street. God's gift of health and companionship have led me miles down these trails, and it's brought me here today, ready for a new adventure. Years ago, they started running. A small group of families threw off everything that hindered and began building a church.
I'd grown up at the Stout Church, Stout Reformed Church, and I wasn't real enthused about coming over here. But the kids were growing up, and that was a lot of miles over there. So we transferred, and I've been glad ever since.
Being a 10-year-old at that time, you didn't realize the impact of the importance. You sat through a church service, and the biggest thing, you had cookies and Kool-Aid afterwards. And I'm sure it was a fellowship time for the adults, especially the new people as they were gathering new people into the congregation.
We were a church of young families, very young families. It took several years before we had enough youngsters that were even 8th grade before we could have a youth group.
The first handout to the neighborhood said this church exists to serve your community.
Just over 2 months before organized worship services began in the basement of Pastor Al Moss's home on Clearview Drive, these families broke ground on a new neighborhood church, and 2 days before Christmas, on December 23, 1962, Orchard Hill held its first church service in the new sanctuary.
This is maybe the classic picture of Orchard ever. Al Moss wanted everybody on one side so that it would look kind of full. And then during the service, one of the things he said, which is in the written minutes, is this church exists to fill these empty seats.
From the very earliest days, Orchard focused on next generations. The race was marked out. Families first. Love the children and young people.
I remember going over to the Bartletts, and for some reason Dave got sent to the basement a lot.
I did. That is true.
There were some things that some of we older people were a little uncomfortable with, but one morning after church service, I was standing by the west door, and a handful of girls that were probably in junior high were coming from the big house, coming through, and I heard one of them say as they came through, "Don't you just love coming to this church?" And I thought, yes, we're doing the right thing.
We decided that these college students didn't have anybody place to eat Sunday nights. And we started out and we fed maybe 8 to 10 college students, and we did it in our homes. And there was a handful of us that took turns. And then it grew till they didn't have room in their home anymore. So we started doing it here at the church.
This began a journey beyond anything these early founders had in mind. They thought they were planting a neighborhood church to reach those with Reformed roots in this small part of Cedar Falls. But God has used it to become salt and light in 5 communities across the globe.
It is amazing you guys pull alongside of us and do that ministry. And thank you so much for your support. And we are also grateful for you. May God continue to bless you guys, and let's keep on going till the Lord tell us stop.
The love of running was passed on to me by my mom, the love of God's creation by my dad. And because someone I don't know labored in love to build these trails, these 2 great joys in my life intersect and bring me close to God. In much the same way, God has used the passion of His witnesses at Orchard to blaze a trail for us. The faith and commitment of earlier generations shows us how to run. So let us run with perseverance wherever this path leads, for there is joy set before us.